Good morning. I wanted to talk to you today about having an incredible life while we're on this human plane. Are you feeling worthy of that life right now? I know for me, there are days I get up and I feel so excited I can hardly see straight. There are other days where I need to just take a minute, have my coffee sitting outside, and slow it all down. Then I ask myself, what's going on within me? What do I need to do to feel enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy? As I think about that, I often go back to living a life fully awakened and to realize that I have the power within to live that life. Jesus was God's idea of man in expression, and he did live an incredible life. Let's see what he has to say about that life. I'm reading from the Living Bible, and I'm sort of laughing at myself this morning because I actually have three very short verses. The first verse in Jesus sharing his message on how to live life comes from John 10:10. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. The second is from Matthew 19:26. With God, all things are possible. And the third is also from Matthew, but from chapter 17, verse 20. If you have the faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. So as I say that this morning, I was sitting thinking to myself how many people have influenced my life, but by those three E's: enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. And the first one that came to mind was Billy Graham. When I was a young woman in Atlanta, Georgia, going to college, there were days that I wasn't sure I knew enough to get through school. But every Wednesday night, Billy Graham would come to an auditorium in downtown Atlanta, and whenever I could make it, I would. I didn't always agree with the thoughts that were being said, but what I did see is that his body language showed me that when he had God within, when he spoke of Jesus as his Savior, no matter what was going on with my thinking, it was so neat to realize that we all have that power. Now, I want to fast forward just a few minutes. I am to the point in my life right now that I have found a power. I don't feel that I needed to be saved, but what I do feel is that I needed to be awakened. And in doing that, there are times that I have to make choices that help me feel excited. One of the times that I saw Billy Graham, he talked about a choice. He talked about being in his later life and how important it was that he did things that were a little bit fun rather than always being responsible. He talked about having a limousine, and he had a driver that was so kind and just filled with good chatter that helped raise his consciousness. So he ended up asking that driver if he could drive the limousine. And the driver said, of course you can, Reverend Graham. You're welcome to. So he got in the limousine, the driver got in the back seat, and off he sped down the road in the mountains, so there wasn't a lot of traffic. But he'd gotten a little heavy-footed and had forgotten the speed limit when all of a sudden he heard sirens from the background. He pulled over, and a very young policeman came up to him. Reverend Graham rolled his window down and said, I know, sir, I was speeding. I want to always be honest. He went on The young fella said, "Do I know you?" And he said, "My name is Billy Graham, and I live up here in the mountains." The fellow said, "Just a minute. I need to call my police supervisor. I'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere." He called the supervisor and he said, "Sir, I don't know what to do. We have a very important person here." The supervisor said, "How important is he? Is he the governor?" He said, "No, more important than that." He said, "Is he the president?" He said, "Oh, no, even more important than that." He said, "Who can be more important than the President of the United States? The only person I can think of, could it be God or Jesus?" And the young man said, "Yes, you got it right on task. It's Jesus, and Reverend Graham is the chauffeur." And we had such a giggle about that. The whole audience realized that Billy Graham can have fun, that we need that enthusiasm and that excitement and that sense of laughter in our lives. So what does that have to do with feeling worthy? It has to do with feeling worthy by realizing we need to go within and know ourselves. We need to realize what we need each and every day. And for me, what helps me with that is getting up in the morning and having prayer and meditation, asking myself how my physical body feels, and if my mind is working well or if I need to slow it down for just a bit and rest. And sometimes I just need a little adventure, as Billy Graham did. He had wanted to drive a limousine in the worst way. So I asked myself, what can I do for me today? What can I do to realize that I have such a good life? I start by looking at what I have. I start by checking my self-care, as I said, physically, my mind, where I know God and man meet. What do I need to do to be in my highest consciousness? And for me, as I said, often an adventure sets me on that path. From there, I look at enthusiasm. As I become enthusiasm, my faith that something can materialize seems to arouse. And many times with that faith, I just know that things are going to be better than I can imagine. Faith is knowing that it'll all be well. I have to overcome past thoughts. I have to tell myself to cancel anytime there's a thought that is not in my highest good. And the last thing I need to do is to realize that sometimes I need to be out of myself, helping other people. How much can I help? When do I need to help? I need to communicate. I need to have a sense of friendship. I go within. I let my automatic GPS, as I call it, my Christ consciousness, be my guide. And finally, I always love our third unity principle. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So as I think on excitement, enthusiasm, and expectancy, I often bring that into my fourth E, which is expression. By self-care, by self-knowledge, by knowing when to be inside of myself in the quiet, are communicating and having friendship with other people, knowing when to help and when to rest. And so the last thing I want to leave you with is an affirmation that I use quite often. The Christ in me gives me dominion over my world, my inner world, and I am filled with light. And my light is in the term of excitement, expectancy, and enthusiasm. I love to have fun, and that is what Jesus wants for all of us. He came that we could have life and live it abundantly. Thank you.